My beloved child, don't skip. There is a quiet reason your heart felt drawn here at this exact moment, even if you cannot explain it. Some moments arrive with loud celebration, while others arrive wrapped in silence, waiting patiently until you are ready to recognize them. This is one of those moments. Long before you realized it, something inside you began changing. It was not the kind of change that the world applauds or announces. It happened in the hidden places of your spirit. Inside the decisions you made when no one was watching, inside the kindness you offered without expecting anything in return, inside the strength you discovered after believing you had none left. You thought those moments disappeared unnoticed, but they did not. Every quiet step became part of a path that was leading somewhere far more meaningful than you imagined. And somewhere connected to that same path, another heart began feeling the warmth of those unseen choices, even without understanding why. There is something beautiful about the way hope returns. It rarely knocks on the front door. Instead, it slips gently through a window that has been left slightly open by faith. That is exactly what has been happening. Your soulmate has been carrying emotions they struggle to explain, sensing that something within their world was becoming lighter. They could not point to a single conversation, a single memory, or a single event. Yet they kept feeling that someone, somewhere, had chosen growth over bitterness, peace over confusion, and patience over rushing ahead. They did not know it was connected to you. They only knew that the future suddenly felt less uncertain than it had before. Pause for a moment and consider this. What if the smallest decision you almost forgot became the very thing that changed the atmosphere around someone else's heart? What if the kindness you nearly dismissed as insignificant echoed farther than your eyes could ever see? Life often works this way. The greatest transformations begin with actions so quiet that they seem ordinary until much later, when everything finally connects. Something important is waiting for you, and understanding this truth is the first step towards seeing it clearly. Your soulmate has been remembering little details they once overlooked. A simple smile. A gentle conversation. The feeling that someone like you must still exist somewhere in this world. Those thoughts have become more frequent, not because of coincidence, but because their heart has slowly become ready to recognize what truly matters. They are discovering that lasting joy is not found in perfection. It is found in authenticity. And every realization keeps leading them closer to the same unseen destination. Perhaps you have wondered whether your efforts have made any difference. Perhaps there were evenings when you questioned whether choosing peace instead of resentment accomplished anything at all. The answer has been unfolding quietly, one unseen moment after another. Seeds planted with sincerity rarely bloom overnight, but when they do, they surprise everyone who forgot they were ever planted. Your soulmate is experiencing the first signs of that bloom, even if they cannot yet explain why tears of gratitude have replaced old uncertainty. Stay till the end, because this is only the beginning of something far deeper than appearances suggest. The happiness they are feeling is not simply about a future meeting or a single joyful moment. It is about recognizing that hope is becoming real again. They sense that someone has finally become the person their heart was always hoping to find. They cannot see the entire picture yet, but they feel its presence growing stronger with every passing day. And as this quiet realization continues to unfold, another hidden piece of the story is preparing to reveal why one unexpected moment caused your soulmate to whisper words they never thought they would say aloud. Words that change everything in a way neither of you could have anticipated. There was no dramatic announcement, no sudden interruption, no unmistakable sign that everyone could see. Instead, the next chapter began the way the most meaningful ones often do, with a single quiet realization that settled gently into an open heart. Your soulmate found themselves smiling for reasons they could not explain. They would pause in the middle of an ordinary day, look out a window, and feel as though someone they had never fully known was somehow becoming familiar. It was a peaceful feeling, almost impossible to describe, yet impossible to ignore. They tried to dismiss it at first. They told themselves it was only a passing emotion, the kind that disappears as quickly as it arrives. But every attempt to move on brought them back to the same quiet certainty. Something had shifted. Not around them, but within them. They noticed they were becoming more patient with people. They found themselves speaking with greater kindness. They began imagining a future that no longer felt rushed or uncertain. They did not realize that the very change they were experiencing was being shaped by the unseen ripple of your own growth. Isn't it remarkable how hearts sometimes begin speaking the same language long before voices ever meet? That is one of life's quiet mysteries. When two people begin choosing peace, honesty, and compassion, even from different places, the distance between them begins to feel smaller. It is not because everything suddenly becomes perfect. It is because both hearts become ready to recognize what truly matters when the time comes. Your soulmate carried a memory that had stayed hidden for a long time. It was not a memory of your face or your name. It was a memory of hope itself. They remembered believing, years ago, that somewhere there must be someone who values sincerity more than appearances, someone who brings calm instead of confusion, someone who listens before speaking and understands before judging. Somewhere along the way, they almost stopped believing that person existed. Yet now, without fully understanding why, that hope has returned. Don't skip, because what happened next surprised even them. One evening, surrounded by the ordinary rhythm of life, they caught themselves laughing from the heart. It was genuine, effortless, and free. As soon as that moment passed, tears quietly filled their eyes, not from sadness, but from gratitude. They realized how much lighter they had become. The weight they had carried for so long no longer felt impossible. For the first time in what seemed like forever, they whispered, "Maybe everything has been leading me somewhere beautiful." They did not know that at almost the same time, you were also becoming someone stronger than you were yesterday. Every lesson you accepted instead of resisting, every moment you chose understanding instead of frustration, every quiet act of faith was preparing both of your paths in ways neither of you could yet measure. The connection was not built in a single day. It was woven gently through countless ordinary moments that now carried extraordinary meaning. There is another detail your soulmate has not shared with anyone. They have started paying closer attention to the little moments that once seemed insignificant. A meaningful conversation. A familiar song. A peaceful sunrise. A feeling that today might somehow be different. These simple experiences have begun stirring something deep inside them, as though their heart recognizes that an important season is quietly approaching. Stay till the end of this journey, because the happiness they are feeling now is only the first layer. Very soon, one unexpected conversation will bring a realization so personal and so deeply moving that your soulmate will finally understand why these joyful tears began, and when that understanding arrives, it will reveal a connection they never imagined was already growing stronger. A quiet moment arrived when everything around them seemed perfectly ordinary, yet something within them refused to remain the same. They were not searching for a sign. They were simply living another day, moving through familiar routines, when an unexpected sense of peace settled over their heart. It stayed longer than they expected. It did not demand attention. It simply remained, as though it had finally found the place where it belonged. That was when they stopped asking, "When will everything change?" and began asking a different question. "Who have I become while I was waiting?" The answer surprised them more than anything else. They realized they were no longer holding tightly to yesterday's disappointments. They were no longer measuring every tomorrow against old expectations. Instead, they were becoming grateful for the quiet progress that had happened one small step at a time. What they could not yet see was that your own journey had been unfolding in much the same way. Every challenge that taught you patience, every moment that encouraged you to become gentler instead of harder, every decision to keep moving forward without demanding immediate results, those moments carried a quiet strength that reached farther than you imagined. They were shaping more than your future. They were preparing two hearts to recognize each other through qualities that cannot be imitated. Something important is waiting for you, and it begins with this simple truth: the deepest connections often grow long before two lives fully meet. Your soulmate began noticing something unusual. Whenever they imagined the future now, they no longer pictured success, recognition, or achievements first. Instead, they imagined sharing peaceful mornings with someone who understood silence, joyful evenings filled with simple conversations, and ordinary days made extraordinary by genuine companionship. They smiled at these thoughts without realizing why. It felt as though their heart had quietly rewritten its own definition of happiness. Don't skip, because this realization became even more meaningful. One evening, someone close to them casually asked, "What makes you seem so different lately?" The question lingered. Your soulmate paused before answering. They searched for the right words but found none that seemed complete. Finally, with a gentle smile, they admitted, "I don't know. I just feel like something beautiful is getting closer." Those listening assumed they were talking about good fortune or a new opportunity. Only your soulmate knew it felt much deeper than that. They were not waiting for a perfect moment anymore. They were becoming the kind of person who could recognize one when it arrived. And in that quiet transformation, something extraordinary happened. Instead of wondering whether they would ever be enough, they began appreciating the person they were becoming. That single shift filled their heart with a joy so genuine that tears quietly returned, not because they had received everything they wanted, but because they finally believed that life still held wonderful surprises ahead. At almost the same time, another unseen thread was being woven into this story. A memory connected to you, one that seemed small and almost forgettable, was about to surface in the most unexpected way. It would not appear through coincidence or spectacle, but through a conversation so natural that no one else would recognize its significance. Yet the moment your soulmate heard those simple words, they would fall completely silent. Because for the very first time, they would realize that the happiness filling their heart had a reason they had overlooked all along, and that realization would bring them one step closer to understanding who had been quietly changing their life from a distance. The conversation began so naturally that no one present imagined it would become unforgettable. There was no grand introduction, no carefully prepared speech, only a few gentle words exchanged in the middle of an ordinary day. Yet ordinary moments often carry extraordinary meaning when the heart is finally ready to receive them. Your soulmate listened quietly as someone spoke about the kind of person who leaves peace behind wherever they go. They described someone who chooses understanding before judgment, someone who remains kind even when kindness is not returned, someone who continues growing without needing constant recognition. The description was simple, almost effortless. But something unexpected happened. Your soulmate became completely still. It was not because they suddenly knew your name. It was because every word echoed the quiet feeling that had been growing inside them for so long. For the first time, they realized that the future they had been hoping for was no longer an impossible dream. It felt real enough to imagine, close enough to believe, and gentle enough to trust. Stay till the end, because this quiet realization opened a door they never expected. That evening, they found themselves reflecting on the journey that had brought them here. They remembered the moments when they nearly gave up on hope. They remembered the days when they convinced themselves that meaningful connections belonged only in stories. Looking back now, they understood something they had missed. Every season had been preparing them. Every unexpected turn had shaped their heart into someone capable of appreciating something genuine instead of something merely impressive. Not loud happiness. Not fleeting excitement. The kind of happiness that arrives softly and stays. Tears filled their eyes because they realized they were no longer chasing an idea of love. They were becoming ready to receive it with gratitude, honesty, and peace. They whispered a quiet thank you, not because every question had been answered, but because they no longer needed every answer before choosing hope. At that same moment, your own path continued unfolding in ways you could not yet fully see. The compassion you have been practicing. The resilience you have been building. The quiet confidence that has slowly replaced old doubts. None of it has been without purpose. Every part of your journey has been adding another piece to a story that neither of you could have written alone. Something important is waiting for you. Not because life suddenly changed overnight, but because both hearts have been changing little by little until they were finally able to recognize what truly matters. Yet there is one final piece your soulmate has not shared with anyone. Hidden in a small notebook, tucked between ordinary pages, is a single sentence they recently wrote after one of these quiet moments of gratitude. They have shown it to no one. They have read it only to themselves. And those simple words reveal more about the connection they feel than they have ever spoken aloud. When those words are finally revealed, you will understand why their tears became tears of joy, and why they believe that the most meaningful chapter of this journey has only just begun. Not every message is spoken aloud. Some are written quietly, with no expectation that anyone else will ever read them. That was the kind of moment your soulmate experienced. The world around them carried on as usual, yet they opened that small notebook, turned to a blank page, and allowed their heart to speak without interruption. For a long while, they simply looked at the page. No words came. Only gratitude. Only stillness. Then, slowly, one sentence appeared. I believe someone is becoming the answer to a hope I almost forgot to keep. As soon as they finished writing, they closed the notebook and held it close for a moment. A gentle smile crossed their face, followed once again by quiet tears of happiness. Not because they knew every detail of what was ahead, but because they had finally stopped fearing what they could not see. Hope had become stronger than uncertainty. Don't skip, because this was not the end of the realization. It was the beginning of an even deeper one. Over the next few days, they noticed something remarkable. They no longer rushed through life searching for extraordinary signs. Instead, they began appreciating the ordinary moments that had always surrounded them. A peaceful sunrise. A thoughtful conversation. The laughter of loved ones. A quiet evening filled with reflection. Each moment reminded them that the most meaningful blessings often arrive gently, never demanding attention, only inviting gratitude. Without realizing it, they had become the person they once prayed to become. And that change filled them with a happiness that could not be measured by outward success alone. Meanwhile, your own journey continued weaving into theirs in ways that neither of you could fully understand yet. Every lesson you embraced with humility, every act of patience you chose instead of frustration, every time you decided to become a little kinder than yesterday, it all carried a quiet influence. The life you were building was beginning to reflect the very qualities your soulmate had been hoping to find. Isn't it fascinating how the greatest gifts are often prepared in silence? Not because they are hidden forever, but because they become more meaningful when hearts have grown enough to recognize them. Something important is waiting for you. Your soulmate has begun speaking differently about the future. Friends have noticed it. Family has noticed it. Even they have noticed it. There is a calm confidence in their words now, a peaceful expectation that something beautiful is unfolding at exactly the right pace. They no longer feel the need to force tomorrow to arrive. They have learned to value today, trusting that each small step has its own purpose. One quiet evening, they looked at the stars for a few moments and whispered something they had never dared to say before. I don't know who you are yet, but thank you for becoming the person you are meant to be. Those words were carried by nothing more than sincere hope, yet they left their heart lighter than it had been in years. And as that quiet prayer faded into the evening, an unexpected event began unfolding, so simple that most people would overlook it entirely. But for your soulmate, it would become the moment everything finally started connecting. One familiar voice, one unforgettable sentence, and one gentle realization were about to reveal why their heart had been celebrating long before they understood the reason. The moment arrived without ceremony. There were no bright lights, no dramatic interruptions, no unmistakable signal that announced, "This is the turning point." Instead, it unfolded through something wonderfully simple, a familiar voice sharing an ordinary story. Your soulmate listened with quiet attention as someone spoke about the beauty of personal growth. The conversation was not centered on romance. It was about becoming someone who brings peace wherever they go, someone whose presence makes others feel safe, understood, and encouraged. Every sentence seemed gentle, yet every sentence settled deeply within their heart. Then one unexpected line changed everything. Sometimes the greatest gift someone gives you is becoming the best version of themselves before they ever meet you. Silence followed. Not an uncomfortable silence. A meaningful one. Your soulmate lowered their eyes for a moment, and a smile slowly appeared. It was the kind of smile that comes when a truth finally finds its place inside the heart. Suddenly, so many pieces began fitting together. The quiet happiness they had been feeling, the growing sense of hope. The unexpected gratitude that kept returning, none of it had been random. They realized that love is not only about finding the right person. It is also about becoming the right person. And somehow, without seeing the whole picture, they felt that both journeys were already unfolding side by side. Stay till the end, because what happened next became even more personal. That evening, they returned to their notebook, but this time they did not write immediately. They simply reflected on how much they had changed. The fears that once guided their decisions no longer held the same power. The impatience that once clouded their thoughts had quietly given way to trust. Even their dreams felt different now. They were no longer asking for perfection. They were hoping for authenticity, kindness, and a connection built on genuine understanding. As those thoughts settled into place, another realization gently arrived. Perhaps the reason they felt so much joy was not because something extraordinary had suddenly happened. Perhaps it was because someone they had never met had already started making choices that would one day bring peace into both of their lives. That thought filled their heart with overwhelming gratitude. Not excitement that fades. Not emotion that disappears by morning. A steady, comforting happiness that quietly whispered, "Everything is moving in the right direction." At that same time, your own story continued unfolding with remarkable grace. Every moment you chose patience over haste, every time you offered compassion instead of criticism, every quiet act of integrity that no one applauded, those moments were shaping a future that rested on something far stronger than coincidence. Don't skip. Because there is one final detail your soulmate has been carrying close to their heart. Recently, they made a promise to themselves. A simple promise. When the right person finally enters their life, they will never take that connection for granted. They will listen more carefully, appreciate more deeply, laugh more freely, and protect the peace they have worked so hard to find. They do not yet realize how closely that promise is connected to the journey you have been walking. And very soon, through one gentle encounter that neither of you expected, your soulmate will recognize a familiar feeling they have carried for weeks. A feeling that will make them quietly whisper, with tears of happiness in their eyes, "This is why my heart was celebrating long before I understood the reason."